All right, looks like we've got it sorted. Well done, finally. Ladies and gentlemen, we present to you Mr. Mufizal Mokhtar. How about a big hand, everybody?
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, so it's not a pitch, it's already sold out. So we sold 450 pieces of that within the first hour of launch. And we sold, how much was it? 699 US dollars per piece. So that was just to get your attention. Hi guys, my name is Mufizal Mokhtar. I'm a Malaysian, very proud to be. So, MDEC, Level Up KL, Hasnol, and the gang invited me to speak here at Level Up KL for the very first time. I've been coming down here as an attendee, but this is the first time I'm giving a talk. So I'm very, very nervous. So he said, Jai, just come over here and talk. I said, okay, what do you want me to talk about? Whatever you want to talk about. I said, okay, I'll talk about my passion. My passion is digital sculpting. My passion is actually sculpting and art itself. So I'm going to give you guys a talk about digital sculpting workflow. But as a caveat, I'm going to talk about my digital sculpting workflow. So if it's wrong, then it's my workflow. So there's no right or no wrong. Okay? So before that, I'd like to introduce myself a little bit about who am I, and more specifically about, well, my name is Mufizal. Like I said before, I'm a born and bred Malaysian. I've been working in the games industry for 15 years, in Singapore for 10. But now I'm back in Malaysia. And what do I do? All right, so I get asked this question a lot, especially in forms. There's always a job, what your job description or what, hey Joe, about a description. You're supposed to fill out what you're working as. So I'm a game developer, but I'm also a sculptor. I'm also a audio engineer. It's an interesting story there. I'm also a concept designer. I'm an art director, product designer. So this is my problem when I want to fill up that form. Says pekerjaan anda. It's like, what do I write? I usually just write artist, and they say, oh, you're a singer. No, I'm not a singer. Okay, well, I draw stuff. Oh, okay, you're a graphic designer. No, I'm not. So basically, I make stuff for other people to enjoy. That's what I do. That's my passion in life. And here are some of the stuff that I've made before. You might know some of these brands. I used to be art director for Ubisoft Singapore for 10 years. I made games like Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. So I was the art director for Assassin's Creed Black Flag. And also the latest one, which is Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You guys have played, right? Before you played Red Dead, you played Assassin's Creed Odyssey, right? Right. Okay, so yes, so I was an art director, but Hasnol didn't want me to speak about games. Today, he wanted me to speak about sculpting, more specifically, digital sculpting. So before I move on, are there artists in the house? See, artists are awesome. I didn't even ask them to raise their hand. They just did it by themselves. Good, so I hope you guys will be learning a little bit about what I do. So here are also some of the stuff that I've made. So these are the products that I've worked on. There's a lot more that I did. A lot with Hand Made Object Collectibles, a company I founded with Benjamin in the group there. Work closely with Hive Studios as well. So Captain America over here is my very first digital sculpt 3D printed thing with XM Studios and Daredevil. Ren is Bounties of Batos, and of course Mega Man X, one of our most successful products. I also did stuff for Royal Selangor recently. You might have seen it everywhere. So I was the sculptor for a lot of their stuff. Thanos, one of their most successful product. I really like this one because that gauntlet is actually gold, imbued with crystals. So pretty awesome stuff, and it's made out of pewter. And this is all done with digital sculpting. Okay? I've made a lot of stuff in the past. You can check out more of my work on, on ArtStation. Just look me up, Mufizal, and we can connect and do stuff. Okay, so getting into the meat of stuff, I want to address this topic. I'm sure there are lots of digital sculptors here, right? Right. So there's this debate going on about which is better, digital versus traditional sculpting. Some, of course, a lot of the digital artists will say, yeah, digital is better, traditional is over, it's done, nobody's doing that anymore. So I want to put in my debate, because I have the mic so I can say whatever I want. I'm going to put in the debate of which one is better. Now, before we get into that, I want to refresh everybody's mind about what sculpting is all about. So the definition of sculpting itself is the act of creating or representing something by carving or casting or other shaping techniques. So sculpting is one of the most purest and most ancient type of preserving, communicating art and culture. So this is ivory carving of a mammoth. Ironically, the mammoth doesn't have its tusk anymore. But this is circa 20,000 BCE. So it is 22,000 years old. Right? So this guy who sculpted this 22,000 years old didn't plan for me to show it in 2018 at Level Up. But he did it because he wanted to preserve something. Okay? And it's meaningful. And I'm talking about him today. We don't know who he is. He's long dead, of course. But he preserved something that he saw. And this is what sculpting is all about. It's about preserving something, putting something that is timeless and preserving it into a time capsule. As we move forward in time, as our advancement and our understanding of art and culture develops, of course, also advancement in technique, we get better and better work. Of course, you know, this is one of the most awesomest, bestest ever sculptor ever done, for me at least. It's David by Michelangelo. So you can see the difference between this blob of thing to this. And it's not long. It's only took 22,000 years old. So, but as technology advances, so does the sculpting, so does the art. But it's still preserving the same thing. It's preserving culture and it's trying to communicate art. It's showing David holding the catapult, going against the Goliath, and it's everlasting. It's timeless. It's there for you to enjoy, and it's a beautiful piece of art. Me and the wife went to Florence. You're not allowed to take photograph in the Accademia where this David is being shown. So we sat there from the opening till closing. That was like 9 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock in the evening. And we just sat there and we drew David over and over again, trying to study. So that's the kind of thing sculpting does. It just encapsulates and puts something that is everlasting. And again, as time moves forward and the understanding of sculpting materials gets better and better, you get better work. And you start seeing men creating more fantastical type of work. Not only are they trying to preserve culture, but it's also trying to preserve some sort of creativity. So this was done by one of my, I want him to be my good friend, but one of a very good sculptor named Mark Newman. So this was done in clay and casted in bronze. So it's called the Eel Walker. You should look it up. It's a very fantastic piece of work. And then we come to sculpting materials. So this is still talking about sculpting, traditional sculpting versus digital sculpting. Which one is better, right? So then we come to sculpting materials. So sculpting material, the definition of sculpting is shaping something and preserving something, right? So you can use anything that holds form. So you can use clay, you can use wood block, to sculpt. You can use plaster of Paris because it holds shape. You can use marble. You can even use rice if you want to. So anything that holds shape is a viable material for you to sculpt. Anything you want. Tissue paper, balloon, filaments. So as advancement grows and as technology grows, you get new ways of sculpting and you get new materials to work with, which is coming to this one. The latest and greatest is of course, 3D printing. Okay? Now, without tools, you cannot sculpt. Say, oh, but Jai, we can use our hands. Your hands are your tools, right? So tools help the artist or the sculptor refine their sculpt. So you can see that a sculpting tool is always associated to a particular, yes, it's a chainsaw, with a particular type of material. So let's say that this steel sculpting tool, the material is clay. And then the chisel tool, the material is marble. And that chainsaw material is not a human, but wood block or ice. And the computer material is? Anybody? No? A 3D printer. Okay, so now to answer your question, for me, which one is better, digital versus traditional sculpting, is the same argument as is marble sculpting better than clay sculpting or ice sculpting versus wood sculpting. It's just a medium, or it's just a tool. For me, it's an invalid argument. Because in the end, digital sculpting is just a tool. A very, very advanced tool at that. And given to the right artist, with the right material and the right motivation, you can create wonderful pieces of work. And then you can create stuff like this. Yeah, so that one sold out as well. So we sold total of 250 pieces total at sold out in the first day as well. What's the retail again? $799. Yeah, $799 USD. Okay, so yes, so digital sculpting is a very, very powerful tool. It can create amazing pieces of work that was previously not achievable to the artist using traditional methods. When I say traditional, it's like clay and marble and so on and so forth. It's much harder. It's not impossible, but it's much harder. So now the idea of any sort of tool, artwork tool, is for it to become one with the artist. Now, some people are better at traditional sculpting, some people are better at digital sculpting. It does not matter. What matters is that you have to be a great artist before you worry about having a tool to use and to translate your art. So I have to insert that for me, a great artist is not how good he can use ZBrush or how good he can use Unity Engine or how good he can use 3D Studio Max. A great artist is how good he knows his color theory, how good is his proportion, how good is his anatomy understanding, how good is his workflow. Okay, so now what I'm trying to introduce to you right now, I mean, we don't have a lot of time. I've set up my webcam and all that and technical faults and stuff like that. I'll try to speed it up, but I'll introduce you shortly about how I approach a particular problem, which is creating a character, basically, using digital tools. So here are the 4 pillars that I use to create a particular character. So it's broken down into 4 pillars, which is ideation, the block out, and the structure, and detail. So Khan just now from Studio Hive said that detail is what collectors want, details is what people want. Yes, detail is what people want, but detail is the least important part in your workflow. Usually what happens is that people who just touch ZBrush or just touch Modo or whatever, they will work on detail first and then the ideas last. So that usually is the recipe for disaster. So structure is my secret weapon. I'll explain to you what it is in a little while. Here is a pie chart. Because I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation, I had to put one. So this pie chart shows the time I spend doing each pillar. So as you can see, half of my time is spent just on ideas. Conceptualizing, drawing on pieces of paper, going to very, very long mama tea time with my friends. And then the other part of it is the block out, structure, and the last part is the detail. So if you were to give an expression of my mental state at each category, ideation is where I am zen, where I am a little bit more calm. I listen to maybe soft jazz. Block out is where I start to get frustrated. Structure is where I get stressed out. Detail is where I shut off the studio, put on my headphones, and don't want to be disturbed for the next 3 or 4 weeks, where everything is done and I just put my headphones on and go. Okay? So, what is ideation? So ideation is about cheap ideas as much as possible and go crazy and you design stuff. So the definition of design is putting on paper a particular idea for production. That's the definition of design. Okay? So you need to have lots of cheap ideas as much as possible. You go crazy and you design stuff. This part, you don't worry about your line weights. You don't worry about your shaders. You don't worry about your lighting. Nothing. You just worry about putting idea onto paper with as little effort as possible in terms of drawing. Okay? I do this kind of stuff and I send it to Hive and they just make it look good. So making it look good is for presentation to other people, but for yourself, you don't have to worry about it because remember, this is just the idea part of it. So you do photo bashing, you take pictures of the internet, you put them together and you bash them up and make something so that you understand where you are headed to. Okay? And then you get people like Silva Brothers or Hive Studios to visualize your idea and you solidify it for the next step, which is the blockout phase. So this blockout phase is just as important as the ideation phase, because the blockout phase is where you get the base shape, the base proportion, all the major parts, which includes, if you're talking about collectible, it includes the base. It includes the design, the principle, the story, every single element you need to portray the idea that you just did here. So every single thing needs to be blocked out and needs to be very, very fast. Because why it's important is because this is where you have the most energy, where your passion and your energy and your pure drive to create that piece all is very high at this point in time. So you just have to really, as quick as possible, do as much as you can in the blockout phase. So these are the kind of blockouts that I did really, really fast. This was done in like maybe half an hour. The energy is very, very, very strong. So you can see that, of course, it looks like crap, but it doesn't matter because every single element of the design is there. And all you need to do after that is just go ahead and do the structure part, which I will explain what it's about. So these blockout phases are done really, really quickly, half an hour, 1 hour maximum. But I do a lot of them. I do half an hour, 1 hour, done, and then I repose them, I erase them, I do again and keep doing half an hour, 1 hour, where the energy is high. You get all the strokes, you get all the elements in very, very quickly. So during the blockout phase, you get all the poses, all the elements in, even the story, and most of the time, that energy usually translates to the final piece as well. Okay? So you can see that a lot of these emotions are translated directly from the end product to from the blockout phase to the end product. So the tools I use to cheat on blockout are these things. So do you guys know Poser? So Poser is the best cheat tool you have as a sculptor to use because it's like a free armature and it's done really, really quickly. So this was done in Poser. So I just took the Poser model, I posed it up, brought it to ZBrush and just modify a little bit here and there to get the base shape and the base pose done quickly. Okay, so that's super important. But and then there's 3D Studio Max's biped. That's also a really, really good tool for you to get your base proportions, your base shape out very, very quickly. And then of course there's ZBrush. ZBrush has Z-Sphere. I don't use Z-Sphere. So there's Z-Sphere, and then there's this latest thing with ZBrush is called Sculptris. It's very, very powerful. Let me show you. So I'll do a really quick demo. No pressure because everybody's looking. So as you can see, I tried some already. So this ZBrush, everybody knows ZBrush? At least everybody knows the tool. So for those of you who don't know, ZBrush is a very powerful digital sculpting tool. It's like a digital clay. It's done by Pixologic. They're a fantastic company. I'm not endorsed by them, by the way. But they are a fantastic company. And they create really, really stunning tools for us artists to use. So there's this new tool here called Sculptris, and it's an amazing tool for, oh no, sorry. Better? Better? All right, so this is ZBrush. I think everybody here knows what it is, so it's an amazing tool. So this new button here, Sculptris, is an amazing tool for you to do your blockouts really, really quickly. So I'm just going to really quickly do a quick demo here. Now, any of you sculpt in ZBrush? Can I have a show of hands of people who sculpt in ZBrush? Okay, not a lot, so no pressure. So what's important to understand is that ZBrush works in a really weird scale. So what they have now is this scale master. You can just ZBrush scale unify so it works with its best scale of a value of 2. So yeah, go figure it out. So Sculptris, what Sculptris does is basically what it does is it subdivides as you sculpt. So if I take like a tool like this and I sculpt something really quickly, it doesn't, you see it's very low res like that, but if I turn this on, it kind of, very quickly you can create very quick shapes. Yeah, so we make noises when we sculpt, it helps a lot. And if you use the snake hook tool as well, as you pull out with the Sculptris mode, you see it kind of grows, and it's basically like adding clay, so it's amazing. That, with the body, and then you got this fantastic tool as well, Dynamesh. So at this point in time, I'm just creating the basic shapes. I have an idea of how I want this character in my head. It's because my ideation already done last night. So I will use anything I have in my arsenal to create that shape that I want. And I don't try to fight with the tool. I use the tool to my advantage. So let's say I want to create an arm. Instead of trying to fight with this clay, I'm just going to go and append a cylinder. And I'm going to make his really lanky and like that. Then Dynamesh, and using Sculptris, I can just, so you see I'm not fighting with the tool, I'm using it to my advantage. Then mirror sky. So again, this is just a really quick blockout phase. So merge this guy down. Okay. The tool really helps me move really quickly on what I want to do. Dimai. That append another cylinder to get the lanky leg. If you guys have any question at any time, just throw it out, and as we're doing this, we can cut to the questions part early as well. Then we can go makan. So really quickly, mirror. So as you can see, like less than 10 minutes, I already got a little structure here that I can work with, that I can turn into something that is like this, which I did last night. So, so this I used the same exact method, and I can just continue working on from here on forward. So that's basically the blockout phase, where you just do it as quickly as your ideation phase. Although it takes a long time to do it, but it's where the most fun is. Usually what happens is that people will start making the eye, making the cheeks, and starting to make the nostrils. Because you're spending your energy doing those things, you lose that energy making other important things like the hands, the fingers, the accessories, the bags, the whole silhouette, the base. Spend your energy that you have in the beginning making important big silhouettes. Okay, so let's get back to that presentation. Okay, so the next phase that I work on is the structure phase. So this is my secret weapon. This is where people usually skip this part. They go straight into detail. But for me, detail is very different than what I'm going to be talking about here. So structure is about logic, connections, rationale, structure, and the medial detail. So what it is, very simply put, structure is about logic. So when you have like a mecha type leg, structure is about the connection, the bolts, the wires, the inner mechanics, the way things work, the way things make sense. So it's not the details yet, it's just the structure. This is also where you start to scratch your head on trying to make sense. Structure is also about rationale, like how does this character stand? How is this character walking? It's also the medial. Medial, when I say medial detail, is you've got your big silhouette, which is, these are your big silhouette where there's no detail yet. And then you got your medium detail, which is your structure, your logic, your gears, your mechanic, your muscles, your anatomy. That's all structure. And then after that, you have your micro, which is the detail. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to ZBrush now to show you what I mean by structure. So we've got this guy here. Now he doesn't have any structure yet. Can you guys guess what structure means when I'm talking about this particular stage? Muscle definition, yeah, that's right. So he's just a block out lump of clay. He doesn't have a hand, doesn't have an eye, doesn't have a leg. So this is the part where you start doing the structure itself. It's a very, very important phase in your digital sculpting workflow, because this is where you sometimes get lost into doing the detail, which you should stop yourself. So for this, then you can start doing the structure, like giving him some muscle definition based on your character design, of course. Give him some rib cage. His neck needs a little Adam's apple, and then you've got neck part here, and then you've got. So again, they're very, very fast structures, just for you to understand the character design and all the important structure you need to make sure that your character is recognizable and unique. Delta, as you can see, I'm doing it really, really quickly here because I want to make sure that it's logic. So I'm going to merge this thing down. So structure is about logic. When I say about logic, it also, you have to define what things are. So right now, you don't know what this thing is. It's just a ball and two sticks. So as soon as I put something like this, you kind of understand that he's wearing some sort of pants, right? So this is all structure. It's not detail yet. So because you already have your base idea mapped out, you don't have to worry about proportions anymore. You don't have to worry about shapes. You've got that all sorted out. And all you have to worry is starting to get really, really fun and doing a lot of fun things like that. So let's give him an eye. Yep, making noises. So again, just the structure here. So when you're really one with the tool that you're using, you don't think about it anymore. You just like the shortcuts, everything like that. You just use the tool to your advantage. You may funny guy. So yeah, that's basically how you work on the structure itself, for you to be able to get a character that is sort of like looking like this. So this is still, there is no detail, there's no skin textures or anything like that at all. It's just pure structure based character. So So you see, using that energy that you had earlier on, you take a character that is from a basic shape like this, and then you get something that is like that. And the idea does not run away far. So it translates really, really quickly, and you can sense the original energy all is translated. And from here onward, you can just keep doing the fun stuff where you actually put your headphones on and you just go on with the detail and the textures and all the crazy fun stuff that people like to see. All the stuff at the back is the most important stuff. Without that thing that you did before, you will not be able to achieve that beautiful detail that you wanted at the very, very end of the product. Okay, so I'll come back here really, really quickly. I want to show you one last stuff. Music, like the Academy Award already starting to sound, means I need to get off the stage. So the last part, which is yes, it's a very, very important part. I agree, it's a very important part. But detail for the sake of detail is not, it's not good. Structure is more important than detail, right? I want to, when you look at a statue or when you look at a piece of character, I want to know how that gun works, rather than I want to see the weathering on the gun or the bolt detail on the gun. I want to make sure that your attention to detail is there rather than the detail itself. However, ZBrush is a very, very powerful tool for doing detail and doing textures and patterns and micro details. So I'll just switch back to ZBrush. For those of you who don't know how it's done, I'm just going to show you really, really quickly how people do it. So this is Batman that I did for Royal Selangor. Okay, so this is the body. You can see there's no textures in it. This body is already been unwrapped. Everybody knows what unwrapping means? Yep, so this body already has a UV map onto it, which is the key and the trick to actually doing detailed micro textures onto ZBrush. So all I have to do now is, because it's already unwrapped and it's got a few sub D levels, so from low res to very, very high res, not that high res, 571,000 polygons, not high res. So there's this thing called surface here. All I need to do is just add noise to it. So what this noise is, basically what it takes a particular pattern, which is the alpha texture here that I have, and I can just use it to create this pattern. Now this one, right? If we were to do this traditionally, you probably take the artist, I don't know what, 2 months to actually do it properly like this. But it took me like less than 2 seconds to do it just now. So I can change the scale of the alpha, and and the best thing is that I can actually use this masking tool to mask out all the areas that I don't want the textures to be. So this is how we do it. So I can just apply this to mesh. Yeah, it's a bit low res, but then I can choose another texture to replace that area where there is none. So what happens then is it can become something like that, using the same method. So that's basically how I work. That's basically my pipeline. Let's just go back really quickly. which is these 5 steps, which is ideation, block out, structure, and detail. Okay, so that's all I have for now. I would like to open the floor right now for questions. If there's any particular tips and tricks that you guys want me to tell you, or if you have any particular questions about Assassin's Creed.
We're a little short on time, though.
We are short in time.
Yeah.
Well, I'll be available all weekend.
Great thought.
So I'll be available. If you guys want have any questions to address to me, you can just come up to me and ask any questions you want. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I enlightened a little bit. Thank you for having me.
Check that out. Wasn't that some pretty cool stuff right there? And you can, of course, talk to Mufizal over lunch.